What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I am Emmanuel, aka Lost in a Memory. Lost in a Memory is my artist name slash producer name slash the name of this channel. And today I got a really cool project to show you guys. This is the Logic Pro X session for my song Midnight Heartbreak. It is my favorite song that I've produced, written, recorded, created, everything. This song, a little bit quick background, right? I wrote this song in September of 2020, right after a breakup that was pretty heartbreaking. So I needed to capitalize on that emotion. I was like, okay, this needs to be turned into a really cool song. And in my opinion, it did end up being a really cool song, and I am very proud of it. So today I'm going to show you exactly how I produced it. Everything from the vocals to the guitars, bass, drums, synthesizers, mixing, mastering, all the chains over here, the buses, the parallel compressions. You're gonna learn everything. This video is definitely gonna be perfect for beginners, people who are just beginning producing in Logic Pro X or another DAW, and also for advanced users. It's always great to see other producers' workflow. You might learn a thing or two. I mean, these videos are definitely the ones that are the most popular on my channel, which I wish it was my music that was the most popular, but I can see why these are, I believe they do provide some value. Before we jump in, before I show you around the session, I'm just going to take about 8 seconds to show you a clip of Midnight Heartbreak, just in case you haven't heard it on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube Music, whatever. Here's what I'm gonna play the chorus for you so you can get an idea of what the song is, what the vibe is.
It was a night like any other. You told me your love for me was gone and gave yourself to someone else. Can you help me take away this midnight heartbreak?
So the way I would describe this song, musically speaking, I would say it's very, it's in the key of C major, but it revolves around the chord F major 7th. I do believe it has a very unique chord progression. It's in 90 beats per minute, so it's very danceable in my opinion. Not dancing where like you'll have fun or whatever, but when you play just the beat, you'll wanna bounce. So again, I would say it's bouncy. The lyrics are a bit heartbreaking, but it does have a lot of variety in the song. Structure-wise, the verses are very mellow, but they have an epic feel on the part B of the verses. The choruses are very loud, and also have a very powerful dynamic. The bridge has a very confusing dynamic in a good way, whereas the first part of the bridge is very romantic, and then it switches to being very aggressive, and the final chorus keeps that aggression going into the outro. So without further ado, let me just real quick show you around the session so you kind of know what we're looking at, and then we'll get right into it. So first, all these tracks that I've soloed out right here, these are all vocal tracks. There's quite a bit of vocals, a lot of doubles, ad-libs, harmonies, octaves, etc. And of course, I use different settings for the choruses versus the verses. So I sometimes tend to make my workflow a bit harder than it seems to be. I've simplified it a bit since then, but this is a pretty cool workflow still, in my opinion. Very effective. Here is everything I highlighted are guitars. They're all colored pink. There's some clean guitars, some dirty guitars, and some distorted guitars. Bass, it's an actual electric bass that I used for that. We got some drums and percussion. The drum tracks are multi-track, so there's quite a lot to go through there. And what makes the song have its signature sound, besides the clean guitars that play throughout the song, are the choices of synthesizers that I chose. There's not a lot of them, as you can see right here. There's just this many: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 synth tracks. But those 8 tracks are incredibly effective at conveying a lot of variety and the tone of the song. So let's check out the verse. I'm going to skip the intro because I want to get into the nitty gritty of the song, and then we'll go back into tiny details such as the intro. What makes the intro so recognizable? So let's play the verse. Let me bring back the vocals.
But the doubts in your head spinning like a hurricane. I was blissfully unaware of what would become our fate. Ooh, baby, I gave my heart, my soul, my mind to you. I take a bullet to the brain if it meant you'd be okay. I'd fight till my last breath, even till the bitter end. I thought you'd be my happily ever after.
So, vocally, like the performance wise, let's take a look at the vocals. Actually, I wanted to go through these last, but it's what's jumping out at me right now. Obviously I recorded this right in the middle of like the emotional state of a breakup, so they're kind of rough around the edges, but in my opinion they do capture that anxiety of the breakup. And there's not a lot of takes in like if you see my other sessions, this is not a lot of takes. Let me just break down right here how I did those vocals. So let me solo just the vocals.
Ooh, baby, it was a night like any other. But the doubts in your head spinning like a hurricane. I was blissfully unaware of what would become our fate. Ooh, baby,
So let's look at the lead vocal. And the lead vocal track is actually two of them. The lead vocal track for the verse, they're identical in the settings. The reason why I did two, I picked up this technique from Linkin Park in Hybrid Theory and Meteora, their first two albums. I noticed that when Chester would record his vocals, he would kind of be like, for example, the song, I'm sure everybody here has heard Numb, right? When he's like, I've become so numb, I can feel you there, become so tired, so much more aware. Obviously, there's not enough time to breathe the way the song was composed. So he would record one line and then the other in a separate track. You can tell it's like, I've become so numb, become so tired, and then he would go back and record the other ones. Become so numb, I can't feel you there. So that's how I approach it. That way I can have time to breathe in between the takes.
Ooh, baby,
the lines.
It was a night like any other, but the doubts in your head spinning like a hurricane. I was
as far as effects, of course, back then, now I use Waves Tune. Now I got all these crazy third-party plugins that you can see right here. A lot of waves. But, for this, I use the pitch correction that comes with Logic. It's a C major scale, but I took off the B because my main melody does not have the B note in it. There's a de-esser because I sometimes... those sounds, they can be very annoying, so this takes it away.
Baby, it was a night like
you hear that? It was. So that's what it takes away.
Ooh, baby, it was a night like any other, but the doubts in your head spinning like a hurricane. I was blissful.
So then we got a noise gate to cover up the noise when I'm not singing, like the room noise. We got this, what is this? This echo, 8 notes to kind of give the vocal a little bit of a thicker sound. We got the standard compressor, very aggressive, very quick attack, and I won't go too much into this. The channel EQ.
Ooh, baby, it was a night like any other.
I rolled off a bunch of the highs right here. I think they were very annoying, and the reverb. The way I go about it is I bus out the track, in this case to bus number 19, and that is our reverb, which in this case I use the Chromaverb plugin that comes with Logic.
Ooh, baby, I gave my heart, my soul, my mind to you.
And I took off the highs and the lows. Now, what makes my vocal have kind of like that, I would say pop sound, is that I double it. So basically, I record the same thing again, but with different settings. So if you look at over here on your left, on the channel strip, look at this EQ. It's very different between the vocal, between the double and the main vocal, and of course different levels of reverb, etc. So this is the double.
I thought you'd be my happily ever after.
Usually my doubles have a lot more pitch correction because they're in the background and sound a little bit drier, but when you combine them,
And I thought you'd be my happily ever after, destined for each other through the good times and the bad times, honey.
So that's how I get that pop vocal sound. And last but not least, I did a high-pitched falsetto texture.
I thought you'd be my happily ever after.
It's rough when you hear it by itself, and that's okay. Like I could have definitely tried a lot harder to get it to sound better, but it didn't need to sound better because it's just a texture. It's not a lead vocal. When you combine that verse octave with the verse double and of course the actual verse,
And I thought you'd be my happily ever after.
you get this full sound. And if you notice, all my vocals are being routed to bus number 15, which I call it vocal out. Every vocal basically in the song is being routed to this right here. So I almost pointed at it, but you can't see where I'm pointing, where my mouse is. So all the vocals are, I'm cutting down a lot of the lows to give them kind of like that lo-fi vocal sound, not too much. And then I add adaptive limit them.
I thought you'd be my happily ever after, destined for each other through.
And then I run them through this plugin called the Drummer S73. To this day, I'm not exactly sure what the hell this is. To me, it's a compressor, but it definitely adds warmth or whatever texture you pick from here. So I picked vocal enhance with air on, and it gives it, well, even though I'm rolling off the highs right here on most of my vocals, this gives it a little bit of air. It's a little bit hard to describe, but it's kind of like a very low, like very low volume, high harmonics, and it gives the vocal new life, more life.
Be my happily ever after, destined for each other through the good times and the bad times, honey.
So now we got the beat. So for this, usually when I do my drumming, I program everything. So I either program a beat or I play it live using that MIDI drum set, the Alesis DM7X. I believe that's what it's called. I plug it in and I literally play the drums using the Logic Pro X sounds or whatever other plugin I used. Now, here I use the drummer plugin that comes with Logic to basically start me off with like a beat so that I could focus on the writing versus focusing on the beat. Then I took that beat and then converted into a MIDI, section, so I could bring it into the piano roll. You know what I mean? My brain just fried a little bit. And from here, I took that beat and just modified it to fit my song. So here, besides using the drummer plugin, it used the drum. What is this plugin called? DMD. Whatever this plugin is called, I apologize. I know I sound very non-professional right here because I hardly ever use this plugin. But it's basically the drum plugin that comes with Logic Pro, the sampler plugin, drum samples basically. And since it's a multi-output instrument, basically I can, well, first of all, on the main, I would say the main part of this, I threw in a multipressor without, very loud, but with, it becomes very, very tame. And then, bear with me 1 second right here. So the multipressor and then a compressor and then a pedal board. I am running this through a little bit of overdrive, which is normally an effect for guitars. So let's see what it sounds like without. This overdrive adds a lot of dirtiness to the drums, makes it sound, again, I was going for that kind of like dirty, lo-fi, grungy kind of sound, like not too polished. And of course, all of these are being routed to this, what I call the drum thickener. It's an auxiliary bus that I made with another channel EQ and compressor to add more depth. And since it's multi-output, I can, mess around with mixing each of the elements of the drums. So here's the drum, the kick. I threw a Studio FET compressor, which is, in my opinion, very aggressive, perfect for that aggressive kick. We got this cool, like, electronic sounding snare. And I'm running it out to reverb to bus number 13, which has a space designer with the highs and the lows rolled off a bit. So that is how I got that beat. Okay, now let's take a look at the guitars real quick before we go into the synthesizers, which are the meat of the song, and then we'll go into the chorus. I want to show you the intro real quick. I hope you're listening to this on headphones or a really cool stereo sound, because like there's a lot of stereo information going around. And I'll be quick on this. So for the guitar tones, for all the guitar tones in this song, I used STL Tone Hub. I used the Lee Malia from Bring Me the Horizon pack. Of course, I modified it. I used a preset called Follow You Clean, which I guess it's his sound for the song, for their song called Follow You. I added a little bit of overdrive to make it a little bit gritty. The delay and reverb, I actually had to roll off quite a bit, even though when I play it and I stop it, it keeps rolling. So this preset had a lot of freaking delay and reverb. I cut off a lot of the highs because this preset is very shimmery and I absolutely love it. But to keep that lo-fi feel, this is what it sounds like without the EQ. Now with... It has a lot of subharmonic frequencies in the actual tone. So instead of cutting them off completely by rolling off the high EQ, they kind of become atmospheric, like shimmery in the background, kind of floaty elements, if I can put it in a visual perspective. And of course, all of that is running through this compressor. Very, very simple. This intro... It's just, I used the Lee Malia tone and I played the intro chord and I just, bounced it into its own separate bounced region. And then I played it backwards and then I threw this EQ where I cut off a lot of the highs and the lows. So here's what it sounds like without the EQ. And with the EQ and everything combined. So I like to pride myself in having like recognizable intros for my songs, and I definitely believe that this is I accomplished that with this with these sounds. Next we have this keyboard. This is where you need the headphones because there's a lot of stereo information. It's rotating left and right, panning left and right. And it's basically, I took this keyboard right here, the Bright Mark II Blackface. It kind of has like a panning effect. Then I threw it on overdrive. I believe I threw an overdrive on this too to make it sound more aggressive. And then I bounced each of the chords, played them backwards, so they could have like that backward attack. And when you play a keyboard, at first it becomes loud and gradually gets quieter. So by playing it backwards, it grows, it gets louder, 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 and then it goes back to the next one and it gets quiet. So that's how I got that sound. And then I threw in a lo-fi vinyl sound effect to give it more grit, to take away the digital sound of recording on a digital audio workstation. And of course the drums come in there. Let's take a look at the bass. There's not a lot to the bass. Basically, pun intended. I used an Ibanez bass. I don't know what that is, what kind of bass I have, and it's over there on the wall. I'm too lazy to look. But yeah, I'm running it through STL Tone Hub again. using the core pack that comes with the tone hub itself. Though since then I've gotten a bass preset pack with this guy Chris Crummett, so I got way better bass tones. But this was good for this song. Nothing too complicated. There's overdrive on the bass. I love putting overdrive on my bass. I rolled off a few of the lows. And the Studio FET, again, I think it's the most aggressive compressor out of the ones that come with Logic. So now let's jump into the chorus, the fun part. So that's the iconic part of the song. Obviously the chorus, the Midnight Heartbreak, the vocals. So let me play those vocals for you just by themselves.
Can you help me take away this midnight heartbreak?
So there's quite a bit to unpack here, but basically it's my vocals use very similar settings as my verse vocals, so there's not a lot of difference there. There's quite a bit of comping going on right here, a little bit of flex pitch for certain notes, not a lot of them, but of course I'm still running the pitch correction plugin, which obviously helps keep me in pitch. Let me see what it sounds like without.
Can you help me take away this?
Yeah, no, I was definitely off.
Can you help me take away this?
And I remember when I recorded this, again, like I was going like through the middle of the Heartbreak, so a lot of my performances, I definitely needed the help of these plugins. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Feel free to disagree. Yeah, so this is basically the same channel strip as before. I think the compressor settings are a little bit different, but to get that gritty sound, obviously I sing.
Can you help me take away this midnight heartbreak?
Double.
Can you help me take away this midnight heartbreak?
So you can hear the breaking of the voice in the sense of like during the midnight, it gets very heavy, distorted. I wanted to kind of take it easy on the vocal distortion right there. By vocal distortion, I mean like physically, distorting the vocal like with the vocal distortion technique. But then I also did a take. I believe this is. Let me see. I believe this is just a vocal distortion take. And this is very pitch corrected to the max to give it kind of like that synthetic background vocal sound. Because it's a texture. Then we got these harmonies.
Midnight heartbreak.
Very similar settings, except with less lows, so more low cut than the other ones. And then these high harmonies, which are muted here, but on the second chorus, they play throughout the second chorus and the third chorus. But during the first chorus, they only play during this part. So I wanted to go for like more synthetic harmony sound, which now I have a plugin specifically for that called Vocal Synth. I forgot who makes the Vocal Synth plugin. Isotope, Vocal Synth. But here I recorded it, and here's just the harmony. And when you combine it with the main vocals. For harmonies, especially doubles, I find it very important to pan them. So for my lead vocals, which are these three right here for the choruses, they're all in the center. Of course, they do have spatial separation in the sense that I am routing them, to a reverb bus, which gives it like a stereo spectrum. But then, for example, like these harmonies right here, like harmony 1 and 2, one's panned to the left, and once pan all the way to the right, using just this panning option in Logic. Though usually I actually, instead of doing that, I do the imaging directional mixer. This gives you the full sound. I use that for guitars, but for vocals I do use the regular panning, since you do lose some information by panning it like that. So let's go into the guitars for the chorus. There's not a lot of guitars in the first chorus. It's just this one. Again, a lot of stereo effects with this the reverb in this STL Tone Hub. It's kind of limited in what you can do with it, but once you learn how to use it, it can really add a lot of depth. I think sometimes too much depth. So, kind of gotta be careful with it. But for this lead guitar tone, it definitely helped a lot. So, or clean guitar tone. Did I say lead? So with that said, let's see, what else do we have right here? Very straightforward stuff. The piano, I used addictive keys for the pianos, for the verses and the chorus. It doesn't load right now. I think when I upload it to the new version of macOS, the addictive keys plugin hasn't been updated yet, but this is the right sound. For this, the reason why I chose addictive keys, that plugin, is because I wanted a piano, something between a hybrid between a piano and a keyboard sound, that sounded very unique, not just a regular grand piano sound, but I also wanted it to be lo-fi, which is why I cut off definitely a lot of the lows and a lot of the highs. So if you combine that with this, even though it says grand piano on stage here, because I recorded it on a grand piano, when I had a grand piano plugin, but ultimately it's a bright Mark II blackface electric keyboard running through, of course, a guitar amp. You get this really cool texture if you combine those. And during part B of the verse, I think that's the signature sound of the song. This it's I call it, took it for granted. What is it? Keyboard trance, whatever. I came up with that sound like 10 years ago when I wrote my song "Took It for Granted," almost 10 years ago. It's a modified trancey hook, which you can find in the Synthesizers, synth leads, and then trancey hook is right here. I modified it and added, like exciters, reverbs, stereo delay, which 8 notes on the side, on the left side, 4 quarter notes on the right channel, and of course it's all being routed to this reverb. So there we go. That's verse 1 and chorus 1. After the chorus, there's this break. Kind of brings us back to that intro. We bring back that backward sample. It's a different chord than the intro one, I believe. Yeah. Here's that chord. And here's this one.
Ooh, baby, I thought you were the best part of me. All the years that we spent are replaying in my head. I'm trying to explain how it all could fade away. Ooh, baby, how could you trade our love for someone else? You drove a knife into my back and cyanide into my heart. I wish your love for me was strong enough to bring you back. I
On verse 2, this lead hook, the transy hook, it comes in a little bit earlier than on verse 1. On verse 1, it comes in on the B part of the verse. On verse 2, it comes in the middle of the A part. So there's, a little bit of, difference there. Also, the grand piano on the verse, on the addictive keys piano, verse 1, it actually has more complicated notes versus verse 2 is just.
I thought you were the best part of me. All the years that we spent are replaying in my head. I'm trying to explain how it all.
So they're very subtle changes, for variety's sake.
I wish your love for me was strong enough to bring you back. I trade all my tomorrows for one, yeah.
These guitars play during part B of the verses.
Had a ring with your name attached to it. Dreams about our children's names. Still you threw it all away. Can you help me take away this midnight heartbreak?
So this chorus is definitely heavier than chorus number 1. I'll go over it really quick. So first we have this kind of like drop the mic kind of moment.
Dreams about our children's names. Still you threw it all away.
So this part, 2 more heavy guitars come in during the chorus. Chorus number 2. One spanned all the way to the left, one to the right. This is using basically the Lee Rhythm 4KLON preset. I have no idea what the fuck that means. It's probably the type of I really don't know what it means. It's probably a reference to one of their songs or something. But yeah, it's basically a compressor overdrive. So it's a heavily 2 heavily compressed guitars. They have the exact same settings, but I am panning one all the way to the left and one all the way to the right, using the directional mixer plugin that comes with Logic. As I mentioned before, with guitars I don't use this pan option. I use the directional mixer to. Basically, this allows me to, instead of moving, some of the information to the left channel, this is, some of it and losing some. When you're moving, let's say, to the left channel, the directional mixer takes all of that sound and moves it to the left channel without bleeding over to the right channel or losing any information. Therefore, it doesn't change my tone. And this, I think it's taken straight out of the Linkin Park book, where you kind of do the accent, the pa, 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 and the build up using the drums and the guitar. That. So with just the guitars, it sounds like this.
All away.
It adds a bit of texture. So.
Can you help me take away this night heartbreak?
Now we have 3 of these. 1 low and 1 high. Like I said, the high harmony plays throughout the whole second chorus, so I won't go into that too much. Now let's talk composition right here. So the songs, for example, the chorus has been the progression is F major 7th, A minor 7th, C major 7, C major. So it has these they're not extremely dissonant chords, but you can tell that they are not, the traditional F major, C major, A minor. That is to convey that sense of dread or of sadness. But then we get to this moment, what I call the moment of clarity. This keyboard's playing 5 notes.
Even when I close my eyes, I still see you there.
So that, what I call the moment of brightness, it's an F, and then it goes into a G, which it resolves. Basically, it moves us onto this section, which I call the romantic section. And then the psych section, let me elaborate. So by going F And then, having that moment of, like giving the listener time to breathe, from all that screaming midnight heartbreak. It can get old when your song is always at, 10. And by having two choruses that are already very loud, you can only go one or two ways, right? You can make your bridge even freaking louder, or, you can make it quieter, therefore making it less impactful. What I chose to do here is give that, again, moment of clarity to kind of like a palate cleanser. Like, okay, cool. Like that, we're done with the choruses. What's next? Now, after the moment of clarity comes what I call the romantic section. The chord progression, I will play this organ. Is it an organ? Yeah. That's the first time that organ comes into the song, by the way. Now, if I just play the main vocal, you would think that this is a romantic song. As soon as I figure out where my vocals are. Okay.
Even when I close my eyes, I still see you there. In my dreams, you still haunt me. Broken, I have tried to drown every ounce of pain, but it still fucking kills me.
I said a bad word. So this was always meant to be like the last, in the terms of, let's say, the narrative of the song. Like the song is about, like, oh shit, like I'm heartbroken. This section was kind of, it's meant to be kind of the fake out, like, like, are you kidding me? This guy Emmanuel wants to get back, with this ex-girlfriend or whatever. And it does a good job with the chord progression. It goes into a major chord progression: C, C major 7th, A minor, G, F, and then back to G. So it's a very safe chord progression. That kind of progression, you hear it in songs like, I believe, what's that? November Rain by Guns N' Roses. I believe that's the song that has it. And with this synthesizer down here and the organ, this. To me, it kind of has that like that wedding feel, I forget the name of the composition. That song that's played before a lot of American weddings. The one that makes people cry when the bride is coming up and the groom is waiting at the altar. So that's kind of what I wanted to go for, kind of like a fake out, kind of like a very romantic like feel. The vocals, what they do is, again, very similar. Why can't I select them? Okay. Very similar settings to my chorus. In fact, I think I just copied and pasted the chorus patches.
Even when I close my eyes, I still see you.
These are some low harmonies.
In my dreams, you still haunt me. Broken, I have tried to drown every ounce of pain, but it still fucking kills me.
So there's not a lot to go into here. Again, like the bass is doing the bass thing. The drums, I already showed you what they're made of. But then comes this like freaking, what I call the epic part, basically the fuck you part of the song. Whereas this whole part, like it's been like, oh, poor me, like poor me, I can't believe, like I'm heartbroken, to this like, even when I close my eyes I still see you there. And then it switches to this like very aggressive chord progression.
But it still fucking kills me. You broke my heart, but never my soul. I'll pick up the pieces, rebuild on my own. I'm learning to love me, but scared to move on. Our story is over, but mine's just begun.
So that, I want it to be the heavy section of the song. Now, normally when you want something heavy, like here in the final chorus, obviously there's a lot of guitars. You would just throw in guitar after guitar. But here I wanted to make it heavy by the lyrics, basically have the song speak for itself without relying too much on the instruments, on the low, like low power chord sounding guitars. What I feel was the effective part of this is, of course, you still have this. You have that, that trancey hook playing throughout the whole bridge, which we are already familiar with. But then this other that took it for granted, my synth right here, it just goes into like a very high, very energetic, very aggressive register. And two new guitars join the fray right here. These are just playing, I call them heavy guitars. This is Andy James from his pack on STL Tone Hub. I'm using the first no, it's not even the first one. Preset number 21, Mesa DC10 lead dry. And I chopped off the top and the bottom. Why? Because I added these quote unquote heavy guitars. They're playing different things. And even though you would think like that the heavy guitar would become, at that point, since I wanted heavy, you would think that it would become the main instrument, the loudest one. But no, I added these guitars just to add texture to the song itself, to the section. So we got heavy one over here. It's playing a harmony octaves. 16 notes. And then this one, another harmony. It's just staying on C. I believe it goes up to D. It's still going up. It's building. The one on the left is going down and the one on the right up. So when it builds up right into the final chorus, obviously you would expect all the instruments to keep going higher, like louder or higher notes. But the guitars, I did, I forgot what it's called, compound motion, not compound, I don't know, opposite. Like basically they're moving separate ways. So they already agreed on like a harmony. Like now they're not like, sometimes like one is harmonizing thirds versus fifths or fourths. They can change those degrees if you're, if you might not know what the fuck I'm talking about if you're kind of new to music. But basically, to build up here, instead of building up both of the harmonies up, and it builds up, one of the harmonies goes up, and one goes like up and then down and then down and down. So they kind of like separate, and that kind of creates a very interesting motion of melody / harmony. What else? The vocals for this section. So this section is in a minor key now, the relative minor of the song. So I said that the song is in C major, but the relative minor of C major is A minor. So this goes into a traditional minor progression: A minor, F, C, and G. Nothing too fancy, but it does have that contrast, especially when we come back into the third chorus. I'll let that play. I think I did play this part live. No, I didn't, but it's definitely my style of drumming. But yeah, last but not least, like for the bridge of vocals, you broke my heart, but there's a lot of harmonies, high harmonies. So contrasting the part A of the bridge, the harmonies are singing way lower than the melody. Even when I close my eyes, I still see you there. In my dreams, you still haunt me. Broken, I have tried to drown. So very low. But on the second part of the bridge, the harmonies are way higher. So they go from being really low compared to the melody to being way above the melody. You broke my heart, but never my soul.
rebuild on my own. I'm learning to love me, but scared to move on. Our story is over, but mine's just begun. You broke.
So that harmony definitely, that's what I mean whenever, like a writing tip or composition tip. When you want something to be epic, obviously, like I said earlier, you might want to throw in a break in there, give the listener a little palate cleanser. And of course, your background instruments slash harmonies can have a lot of impact on the dynamics and, like how the next section of the song is perceived. So now staying on that same theme, going from that very energetic bridge, very aggressive, how do you go back to the chorus? The chorus, we've already heard it twice. So, what do? Add more guitars? Well, I kind of did, but did I? No, I didn't even do that. I did it till the end. So this is the final chorus right here. How do you go back to it? Well, lyrically speaking, I did change up the words a little bit, whereas the first two choruses were about like being vulnerable. This is about like moving on. And I do realize that I did in the beginning, I told you guys like, hey, this is gonna be more production wise, and now I'm going into like the writing aspect and the production. The writing aspect and the composition. I promise, just 5 more minutes of this bullshit, and then we're gonna go into how I mastered the song, how I mixed and mastered actually. With there's a lot of automation going on here that'll make your head spin. Actually, it's not that bad. But keep in mind, so I'll tease you with this. You see this other session right here? This is the master session. So I master in a very different way. It's not very traditional, but it gets me results, and it's definitely something that you can benefit of. So I'll show you that in about 5. So final chorus.
Can you help me understand this midnight heartbreak? I will learn to let go of this midnight heartbreak.
Okay, before we get out into the epic outro. So literally, sometimes simple is better, right? So I have these guitars on the second chorus. Why am I going back to the second? Just so you can hear this. They're there, but they're in the background now. Me being coming from a rock and roll background, those guitars in the past they would have been louder, but in order to make that final chorus pop more, what I did is, of course, automated these to not be as loud, to let these synthesizers breathe. These guitars were not in the first chorus. As you can see, they're muted right here. They are in the second chorus, and they get loud in the final chorus.
Can you help me understand this midnight heartbreak?
And then spectrum-wise, keep in mind, everything has to fit in like a puzzle. So these low guitars obviously are supposed to occupy that low frequency that the bass and the guitars and the kick drum, fill in. So you get a lot of lows. But I cut off the highs because that is reserved for these guys. See how they still blend? In hindsight, I think these guitars are a little bit too loud, but I think I fixed that in the master. So not a lot of things to talk about here. The outro is pretty cool. So here I added more guitars because obviously, you would think like if this chorus, this one right here, if this section went on here too, and I sang again like, can you help me take away this midnight heartbreak? I could still add all of these guitars. There's how many more guitars? 1, two, three, four new guitars that come out in the outro. The problem is there's only so much that room that you can, fill up with sound. So if I had vocals, like lead vocals during this part, like all of these, if I had these vocals also playing here, and added all of these guitars, it would have been absolute chaos. So now since the vocals drop out here, now I have that room, those mids, where my vocal range is, I can fill it up with guitars. Now, I already have the guitars that do the power chords, so if I do more guitars with power chords, not a good idea. Watch these be power chords, let's see. They're octaves. And then this texture. This texture is very pretty, and I had completely forgotten about it. It's a bummer that you can't hear it in the mix, but it's there. So if you notice those octave guitars that come in, they don't get in the way of these lead synthesizers. So it's something that's pretty hard to do, and I'm glad that I got to do it right. And then a last minute idea, if you have heard, the demo for Midnight Heartbreak is up on my YouTube channel, which was a an unfinished version, obviously, of this song. I didn't have these vocal samples at the end, and these are just samples that I cut from my vocals in the song.
Oh baby, it was a night like any other. I thought you'd be my happy ever after.
Here I couldn't decide if to finish it with Midnight Heartbreak or Our Story Is Over. So I did both. And that's it. Everything cuts off like right at, it cuts off abruptly, except for this one, I think. Oh yeah, all the instruments cut off abruptly, and then we go back to, where we started. We started with this blackface and lo-fi vinyl sound, and it ends with that blackface keyboard and lo-fi vinyl sound. So now, let's get into a little bit of mixing for the song, and then I'll show you how I mastered it. So thank you guys if you stuck around this long, actually. I really appreciate beyond words, and I hope this is helping you out. And if you have any questions or any suggestions, I know I'm kind of just picking up the ball where I left it off. And, it's not easy making these videos. At first I was like, I had to basically start recording this video probably like 7 or 8 times. I had to start over because I'm all over the place. I don't know if to start with vocals or to go by the sections of the song, or to go by the vocals and then the drums and all that. So I'm figuring it out as I go. Leave me some questions, comments. If you hate my face, tell me you hate my face. Don't tell me you hate my face. Just kidding. So as far as mixing, automation is very, very helpful in mixing. Here in the intro, of course, the vinyl starts out loud and kind of drops out to leave room for the instruments. The vocals, not a lot of automation there, just subtle volume.
Baby, it was a night like any other, but the doubts in your head spinning like a hurricane. I was blissfully unaware of what would become our fate.
So this is a cool bypass at the end of verse number 2 on the vocals.
Children's names, still you threw it all away.
To make that lo-fi effect, what I did is I added a single EQ right here, but obviously it's turned off, it's bypassed. A single EQ that cuts every frequency above 550 hertz on the verse vocals. So Whenever you see it bypassed, that means that the single EQ is bypassed, turned off. But when you get here, it turns on. See, look on the left, off, on, and that gives it that lo-fi sound. So
I had a ring with your name attached to it. Dreams about our children's names. Still, you threw it all away.
which is perfect for that stop.
Attached to it. Dreams about our children's names. Still, you threw it all away.
Let's see, what other automation did I use here, guys? Oh, and then I have to show you my master strip, my stereo output. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on right there. As you can see, there's not a lot of volume automation, just subtle things like, when guitars need to be louder, fades. Oh, these are panning automations. Let's see, for example, on this. It starts out on the left channel.
Our story is over.
Moves to the right. Your channels might be inverted. I had that problem before. I don't know why. So let me know if the left sounds on the right and vice versa. So my output channels. So let me just show you my auxiliary channels. Let's see. So these auxiliary channels are basically just reverb.
Ever after, destined for each other through the good times and the bad times, honey. Ooh.
So these are different kinds of reverbs for different instruments. Of course, you could bounce whenever you're mastering, because I bounce with by bouncing stems. You could bounce the reverbs as their own stem to mix them, but I choose to mix them in the mix where I believe there should be. I don't even know why I brought that up, but yeah, different reverbs. I EQ them differently. Different kinds of reverbs introduced, like let's say if you put like a big hall reverb or a big plate reverb, it might introduce some low frequencies that will muddy up your mix. And of course, that's why on some of these, for example, this chroma verb, it's a vocal hall. So let me see what reverb this is for the vocals. So this is without the EQ. It's a very rich reverb, but we don't need rich reverb because the reverb has to be in the background. It's supposed to kind of add texture to, like not get in the way. So that's why I turn on this EQ. So that way it doesn't get in the way of the vocals. Let's see, my buses. What do I got? I don't think I use those. Okay, so then my output. Let me show you this. So for my output, let me take off this multipressor. Okay, so the output is basically like your master track. You could simplify your workflow and just master right here. I like to have a lot more control than this. So in the mix, I throw in, let me play the chorus number 2 without these effects, and I'm going to be adding them one by one.
Can you help me take away this midnight heartbreak? Can you help me take away this midnight heartbreak? Can you help me take away this
So the first thing you'll notice, I'm going to start from the bottom up. This is my multimeter. This tells you what frequencies are currently passing through the main output. So if I just...
Can you help me take
With the vocals, obviously, there's not a lot of low frequencies because I'm cutting them. When I play the whole mix, there's a wide spectrum of frequencies. Not a lot of lows, but we'll get to that in a bit. So the adaptive limiter, what this does is this limits your mix, and it can also boost it. And I do use it in the master, which we'll see in a bit. Without that adaptive limiter, take a look at these readings right here. They're gonna peak. and that's not cool. Well, I mean, they're gonna peak if I put it regular volume. See right here? With the adaptive limiter, I can, still have a loud mix. And the adaptive limiter basically puts a ceiling on it, and it's smart. So it's kind of hard to describe. It's kind of like a very simple compressor. We have this EQ. The only thing I did with this EQ is lower the entire mix by 1.5 decibels so that I could boost the low end a little bit right here. Next, with this analog compressor, I added a bit of low frequencies, and it adds a little bit of character too, warmth. And finally, with the Drummer S73, we bring back some clarity that we lost with the compressor, with the analog EQ. Okay, so that is the mix. Now, the way I master is I'll take, let's say, for example, I take all the vocals and I'll bounce all of them together. In my dreams, you still. And then I'll do that same thing. So I do usually 6. I do vocals, guitars by themselves, clean and dirty, no matter. Bass, drums, keyboards, and is that it? Then that's 5. Yeah, and then I bring them into a different Logic session, which is right here. This is a Midnight Heartbreak master session. So the yellow is my vocals, pink is my guitars, bass is blue, and then the synths are the green, and then the drums are blue down here. What I do here is even more mixing. So now we got more automation. When the vocals get too loud, I lower them, etc. I can still do more creative things right here, but the goal of this is that I commit to the recording so that whatever the guitars are, they're done. But I can still mess with the sound. So for example, let's say the vocal, right? If, let me turn these off. So here's what the dry vocal still running through this will sound like. Oops, wrong chain.
Ooh, baby, it was a night like any other. But the doubts in your head spinning like a hurricane. I was blissfully unaware of what would become our fate. Ooh, baby, I gave my heart, my soul, my mind to you. I take a bullet to the brain if it meant you'd be okay. I'd fight till my last breath, even till the bitter end. I thought you'd
That was freaking weird.
be my happily ever after. Just
Okay, so I think this might not be the actual master because I have created some alternatives like masters, master, final master, these different masters, individual stems, some stuff for main stage 2. So either that or it might also be playing this. Let me close out this one, but that way you can get an idea of what I throw in on my master chain. Oops, we're gonna close out not the whole program, but just this. Should we save? No. Okay. And then let's revert this one to whatever's saved from October 25th, 2020. Okay. It ended up being on the other monitor. Here we go. Okay. Let's see what this sounds like.
ooh, baby, it was a night like any other. But the doubts in your head spinning like a hurricane. I was blissfully unaware of what would become our fate. Ooh, baby, I gave my heart, my soul, my mind to you. I take a bullet to the brain if it meant you'd be okay. I'd fight till my last breath, even till the bitter end.
So for my vocals, I did a little bit of flex timing on the main vocal stems. And then of course we got, I'm running them through a de-esser, another de-esser to take away those sibilant frequencies. Our Vox is a pretty simple compressor, vocal compressor from Waves. We throw another channel EQ because sometimes the reverbs do keep a few low frequencies that can get in the way of the master. So I cut those out. And then another multipressor to boost whatever frequencies I need to boost. Okay, then the guitars. These are clean and distorted guitars all in one. I'm just running them through a EQ, take off that low end. That belongs to the bass, but it still sounds chunky. And then a multipressor to make them punchier. The bass, remove all those unwanted high frequencies. Since this is not a punk rock song, I don't need to have those high frequencies from, whenever you put in brand new strings. There's a lot of synthesizers, so I definitely have to cut off quite a bit of low end. Drums are always the hardest to mix. Here's a single EQ to remove unnecessary boominess, multipressor to make them punchier, another compressor, and a standard channel EQ to make the snare right here punchier and the kick punchier too. And then my final step of mixing, mastering. Oof, I'm getting tired. We're almost there, guys. Is running all of these. So after all the EQs, all the buses, the stereo output from the mixing session to this, where we still got every stem has its own channel strip. I still throw them through this compressor right here, and this is we're adding. That's why when I bounce my stems, I bounce them at negative 1.2 decibels, so that I could afford to add more, to boost more frequencies here. So with this EQ, I'm boosting lows, even these ones right here. Adding a little bit of mids, high mids, to give it more body. Then we have this, the Drummer S73. I've used that throughout the mixing process. Here's where it sounds without and with. So without. Can you help me take away this midnight heartbreak? So as you can tell, we are throwing a lot of volume into the drummer, which is why right here I'm using the gain knob. So that it can, this is basically, so that it's not as loud. And then I use this clarity air on, so you can get back some of those like high frequencies that we may have lost in the mixing process. The right frequencies, it's not like I'm cutting and then re-adding them. I'm cutting the annoying ones and just boosting the ones that will sound good in the mix. And finally, the sauce, like the one that rounds everything up, the adaptive limiter. This is where basically, and I'm gonna put it in the simplest way possible, and of course, like it's kind of controversial, but nowadays, your song, there's this unspoken or spoken rule that your song has to be, as loud as possible, which can destroy the dynamics. And of course, I choose to kind of be in the middle of that. Obviously, I have the dynamics in the case of, the bridge. This, it does get a little bit quieter, but it's still loud. And we're back to loud. So the adaptive limiter, basically, you can start at 0, and this will make sure that your levels don't peak. And basically, you just ride this knob to give it gain up until it starts distorting, and then you dial it back, and then usually you end up with like a result that will make me happy in terms of dynamics. So I'm gonna start at 0 and then go all the way up to like 5.7 and beyond, so you can kind of hear the difference. And look at the output.
Close my eyes, I still see you there. In my dreams, you still haunt me. Broken, I have tried to drown every ounce of pain, but it still fucking kills me. You broke my heart.
So that's it. The adaptive limiter is your secret weapon, your main weapon to making your mix as loud as possible while keeping it from peaking. So that's pretty much it, guys. I know there's definitely, I didn't go through every single channel strip because that would have taken forever. But of course, if you have any questions about the process of how I made Midnight Heartbreak, feel free to leave a comment. I will definitely answer. I answer all comments sometimes, unless I'm bored. And check out Midnight Heartbreak. I do have a remix that my friend Fox Division did, and we did a music video for it. Midnight Heartbreak Fox Division remix. Check this out.
How could you trade our love for someone else? You drove a knife into my back and cyanide into my heart. I wish your love for me was strong enough to bring you back. I trade all my tomorrows for one yesterday, so I can save a future day.
There are days when I like the remix better than the original, and there are days when I like the original better than the more than the remix. So there are two different, I would say, like, same theme, two completely different songs, different vibes. This one's faster. It's more like an EDM kind of vibe. It's a lot of fun to play live. So check it out, guys. Check out both versions. And guys, I really appreciate the time, the opportunity to sit here and talk to you guys about production in my own weird, not that good at explaining kind of way. But of course, like, doing more of these videos, will put me back on the groove. So check out more in the description. I'm going to make more Logic Pro X tutorials. I kind of have this idea, and tell me if you guys think this is kind of cool or just the worst kind of thing I can do. I kind of want to have a series basically titled Increasingly Drunk Producer Teaches You Logic. So basically, like, for an hour, I do like this tutorial, very advanced stuff. But the more that the video goes on, like, the more beer or shots that I take, and I get freaking plastered, or as my friend would say, sloshed. I don't know. Tell me what you guys think. And well, thank you guys so much. Once again, my name is Emmanuel here from Lost in a Memory. I appreciate every one of you guys. Hit the subscribe button. It really helps a lot. And don't skip the ads. That helps even more. And buy my merch. Thank you. Bye.